I'm not the Zodiac. And if I was, I certainly wouldn't tell you.
What if a serial killer not only left a trail of bodies but also taunted the police and media with cryptic letters, secret ciphers, and deadly threats? This is the chilling true story of the Zodiac Killer who terrorized California and the relentless hunt for the man behind the mask. The movie begins by introducing two lovers, Darlene and Mike, who tragically fall victim to a serial killer. The gruesome incident takes place while they are inside their car parked in a Vallejo, California parking area. Approximately 1 month later, a letter arrives at the Chronicle office from the notorious serial killer who identifies himself as the Zodiac. The Zodiac has claimed responsibility for the murders of Darlene, Mike, and numerous others. At this point, we are introduced to Paul Avery, a seasoned crime reporter, and Robert Gameth, a father and a talented cartoonist working at the Chronicle office. In response to the letter, a meeting is convened at the Chronicle office to discuss its contents. Upon opening the handwritten letter, the Zodiac provides a chilling account of how he brutally killed the aforementioned lovers on the 4th of July. Additionally, he demands that the Chronicle prominently feature his letter on the front page of their newspaper. The Zodiac ominously warns that failure to comply will result in further bloodshed. Alongside the letter, a cipher encrypted with symbols is included. While the meeting is in progress, Grace Smith, keep a keen interest in the case, begins deciphering the symbols. Unfortunately, his concentration is interrupted by one of his colleagues, preventing him from making significant progress. After receiving confirmation from the police regarding the crime scene description of Darlene and Mike Paul, Avery is astounded to discover that it aligns precisely with the details provided by the Zodiac in his letter. The police themselves have also received a similar message from the elusive killer. If they choose not to publish the news on the front page, the Zodiac threatens to continue his killing spree. Eventually, the Chronicle office resolves to place the news on page 4. Grace Smith is approached by Paul Avery, who takes an interest in him due to his earlier remark during the meeting about the Zodiac. Decrypted message provided by the police. Upon completing the reading, Grace Smith notices something peculiar at the end of the message. Intrigued by puzzles and possessing a knack for solving them, he embarks on deciphering the hidden meaning and uncovers the phrase "dangerous animal." All Avery, captivated by this revelation, driver was shot from behind the front door of the cab. This peculiar detail leaves Toschi and Armstrong pondering the killer's motives, as he could have easily retrieved whatever he wanted from the blank bay driver's pockets through the back seat. 3 days later, a new letter arrives at the Chronicle office from the Zodiac. This time, it is not merely a letter, but a torn piece of cloth stained with blood. Concerned, the Chronicle office contacts the authorities to examine the blood. The cloth is identified as belonging to the slain cab driver, indicating that the Zodiac had opened the front seat door to extract a sample. In addition to the torn cloth, the Zodiac includes a chilling message in the letter, warning both the office and the police that he intends to target a bus full of children in the near future. Gameth and Paul Avery take it upon themselves to delve into the case outside of official police channels. While Toschi and Armstrong continue their own investigation, both teams begin connecting the dots and analyzing the evidence. 4 locations stand out as the sites where the Zodiac claimed the lives of 4 individuals: Solano, Vallejo, Beressa, and San Francisco. It becomes apparent that the Zodiac consistently targeted women but often failed to kill their male. Toschi receives a phone call from Armstrong regarding a man who claims to be the Zodiac and demands a live television phone call with a renowned attorney named Melvin Belli. Arrangements are made for the live television phone call with Melvin Belli. The voice of the Zodiac trembles with pain as he engages in the conversation.
Hello, this is Melvin Belli. Who am I speaking with?
This is the Zodiac speaking.
Melvin attempts to persuade him to meet in person, and the Zodiac reveals that he is in need of medical help. He confesses to suffering from excruciating headaches that intensify if he refrains from killing. Following the phone call, the Zodiac attempts to establish contact with Melvin. However, Melvin is often unreachable due to his frequent travels. The police become aware of the contact and visit Melvin's home to discuss the messages. Although Melvin never met the Zodiac, his maid had conversed with the elusive killer before days pass, and Grace Smith and Paul Avery persist in their search for clues about the killer. Paul Avery concludes that the Zodiac is an attention seeker who craves media coverage. He shares files with Grace Smith highlighting a possible correlation between the Zodiac and another unidentified killer in town. down, the Zodiac seems to take credit for murder, simply to gain notoriety. Out of the 13 killings claimed by the Zodiac, only 4 can be attributed to him with certainty. Paul Avery contacts the police and requests a firearm for his personal protection. Gaymouth goes on a date with a woman named Melanie, but the atmosphere is strained, and Graysmith's thoughts are preoccupied with Paul Avery, who received an anonymous tip about the Zodiac from Riverside. Gaymouth suspects it could be an ambush orchestrated by the Zodiac, and abruptly ends the date to call Paul Avery from a phone booth. Obtained the unsolved case of the first murder committed by the Zodiac in Riverside County in 1966 became a focal point of attention. Following the news, numerous individuals flocked to the San Francisco Police Department, eager to provide information about the Zodiac's identity. 8 months later, a man gives information about the Zodiac archer Lee Allen, the man who is claimed to be the Zodiac by the witness. One day, Lee Allen was drinking Coors. During the conversation, he started talking about hunting people similar to a book. When asked how he would get away with it, Allen said that there wouldn't be any real motive to the crime. He also threw in something about writing letters to the police. The witness recounting the conversation didn't think much of the name Zodiac and expressed his opinion to Allen back at that time. This upset Allen, who insisted that he had thought about it for a long time, and that's the name he intended to use. He appeared to be frustrated about losing his job at the school, and even discussed shooting out the tires of a school bus and targeting the children. The witness decided to avoid Allen after that, and hasn't seen him since. In addition, Allen was known to be interested in skin, diving, and had been to Lake Beressa multiple times. Arthur denies any involvement with the Zodiac, and claims he doesn't recall having any conversation about the Zodiac prior to the first murder. He mentions having briefly followed the Zodiac case when it was first in the papers, but lost interest due to its morbid nature. Arthur informs the interrogator that he had spoken to another officer from Vallejo after the murder at the lake, but he can't remember the officer's name. He provides an alibi, stating that he went skydiving alone at Salt Point that weekend, but met a couple there whose names he has written down at home. Arthur also mentions that his neighbor, Bill White, saw him when he came home around 4 o'clock, but Bill passed away shortly after. He denies being ambidextrous and refutes any statements about killing school children, claiming it is a horrible thing to say. During the interrogation, Arthur's watch catches Tosk's attention, and Arthur mentions it was a Christmas gift from his mother. Arthur concludes by expressing his willingness to help in any way possible and remarks that he looks forward to a future where police officers are not derogatorily referred to as pigs. After finding some clues about the Zodiac, Toschi and Armstrong go to Alan Lee's brother so he can analyze the handwriting of Alan Lee. During the conversation, his brother expressed his belief that Alan is the Zodiac, prompting the officer to assure them that they were investigating. They discussed the possibility of searching the brother's apartment without a warrant, and Alan's brother mentioned a misspelling in a Zodiac letter that matched a Christmas card received from their brother, leading them to agree to search for it. After conducting a search on Alan's house and not finding a clue, 4 years later, Paul Avery becomes a complete addict. Armstrong quits his job as a detective. Gay Smith got married to his date, and Ski is the only one who is still on this case. Gay Smith wanted to solve the case for his upcoming book. He goes to contact Toschi about the case. While having lunch, Toschi initially refused to discuss the open Zodiac case, expressing appreciation for the interest, but stating he couldn't provide any information about it. However, Gray Smith persisted and asked about the day-to-day progress of the investigation. Toschi, who seems to be over the case, informed Gray Smith that the Zodiac Killer had not communicated for 3 years. To emphasize the gravity of the situation, Toschi revealed that over 200 murders had occurred in San Francisco since the Zodiac's last known activity. Gaymouth conducted research on the first cipher used by the Zodiac Killer and revealed that the necessary information to create it could be found in certain books. Gaymouth proposed the idea that by tracking these books, they might be able to trace the identity of the killer. He recalled Toschi's previous belief that the Zodiac could have a military background and shared that he had compiled a list of individuals who had checked out these cipher-related books from various base libraries. Graysmith then presented evidence to Toschi that almost every book on ciphers had been stolen from the Presidio Library and the Oakland Army Terminal Library. Having checked out these books, adding a suspicious element to the investigation, intrigued, the investigator inquired about Mr. Gaymouth's identity, to which he replied that he simply wanted to help. Toschi gives Graysmith a clue who he should contact and leaves the restaurant. Afterwards, Graysmith starts connecting the dots to figure out who the Zodiac is. The more he pushed, the more he started getting phone calls from the Zodiac. The same thing that has happened with Paul Avery. After Graysmith collected files from the police from 4 locations, he finally solved the case. Gaymouth met Toschi to tell him who the Zodiac is, the 18th of December, which happens to be Arthur Lee Allen's birthday. It sets the eerie coincidence that it is both Alan's birthday and a day known for the Zodiac Killer's activities.